In the dusky light of the reptile enclosure, the still form of a man lay sprawled. It's always a rush, the first cut, and with each thud of the cleaver, I felt a sense of liberation. Silence reigned, except for the soft hiss of the snakes, waiting. I've always loved animals more than people. My friends, the lions, tigers, and pythons, they understood. They didn't judge. They didn't lie. People, they were just noise. Always wanting, always taking. It started simply. An unruly visitor here, an unsufferable coworker there. Each time, I'd see their greed, their deceit. I'd hear the growls of my hungry friends, reminding me of the balance, and so I restored it. I remember the first one. A man laughing as he taunted a monkey. Later that night, the lions feasted well. The thrill of it was intoxicating. The power, the control, the hush after. Nobody ever suspected the quiet zookeeper. Why would they? The police were baffled. Disappearances multiplied. But the animals, they seemed healthier, happier. The circle of life, I suppose. The reptiles were my favorite confidants. Cold-blooded, like the world, they didn't mind the tales of my deeds. They understood nature's way. Kill or be killed. Tonight was no different. The still form at my feet was a vendor who'd been cheating his weights, overcharging kids for stale popcorn. "For the children," he'd say, with a smirk. My pythons were more deserving. I knelt, slowly pulling out my knife. The work needed to be done. It wasn't about anger, not anymore. It was about setting things right. As I worked, the hissing grew louder, a serenade for the zookeeper who understood the true order of things. The next day, the sun painted golden streaks across the sky as the zoo gates opened. Families poured in, their laughter a stark contrast to the events of the night before. The reptile enclosure drew a particularly large crowd today. They marveled at the pythons, thicker and more vibrant than they remembered. If only they knew. My colleague, Lisa, approached me eyes wide. "Have you seen Gary? He didn't come in today. That's so unlike him." I merely shook my head, feigning concern. "Perhaps he's sick." Lisa hesitated for a moment, biting her lip, then whispered, "You know, there are rumors. People are saying there's a curse on the zoo. Visitors, staff, they're just disappearing." I hid a smile, maintaining my facade. "Superstitions, Lisa. It's a big city. People come and go." But as days turned into weeks, the rumors grew louder. Whispers became warnings. Visitors dwindled. Still, the zoo animals thrived. My friends never looked better. One evening as I was locking up, a figure approached me. Officer Daniels, the local police. He had that stern look, his eyes scanning me, searching. "Evening," he said. He greeted. "Mind if I ask you a few questions?" "Certainly," I replied, heart pounding but face calm. "What's on your mind?" There's talk," he began, "about the murder of people going missing around here. About the number of people going missing around here. You've been working here a long time, haven't you?" "All my life," I replied. "I love it here." His gaze shifted momentarily to the lion's cage, the mighty beasts staring back, almost protective. "Strange," he mused. "How well fed they look, despite the drop in visitors." A silence stretched between us, the weight of suspicion heavy in the air. He finally nodded. "Keep your eyes open, and if you see anything unusual, let me know." I watched him leave. The hunt was closing in, but I wasn't ready to be hunted. That night, with the cold silver of the moon as my witness, I made a plan. They may suspect, but they wouldn't catch me. The next few days were a cat-and-mouse game with Officer Daniels. He'd make surprise visits, always asking questions, always watching. There was no doubt he was onto me, but he lacked evidence. His persistence was almost admirable. I started being more careful. Instead of using the zoo grounds, I began scouting areas outside the zoo for my activities. Abandoned buildings, old warehouses. It became a more complex game, but the thrill was invigorating. Late one night, while scouting a dilapidated barn on the outskirts of town, a sound froze me in my tracks. Footsteps. I hid behind a stack of old hay, heart thumping, waiting. A flashlight beam danced around, stopping abruptly as a figure stepped into its light. Officer Daniels. He wasn't here by coincidence. He'd been tailing me. I escaped unseen, my heart pounding in terror. His persistence was starting to make me uneasy. I didn't return to the zoo after that night. This city was onto me. The legends of the cursed zoo grew, and soon tales of the zookeeper who favored animals over humans became the stuff of urban legends. Far from the city, in a secluded cabin, I found solace. The company of wild animals, the simplicity of nature. I may have left the zoo, but my mission remained unchanged. And while the city's memories faded, the legend lived on, whispering around campfires and in hushed bedtime stories.